Hello, everybody.
Jesus
It's the
Christ,
Big Bad.
turn.
It's the Big Bad Bosses podcast. Today we're not doing a podcast. We're doing a video. We're gonna do a tier list.
Fun.
Should be
It's
very fun.
definitely gonna get some opinions going out there, so be a fun time.
I should be pretty safe. Most people will agree with mine. I need to maintain my Twitter karma right now.
The day we are recording this is May 3rd, so anything past that is not in our jurisdiction. So
Yeah. I mean, also, to be clear, we are only doing Go Confest TURs, so that means no banner units and no easiest. That also includes super easiest.
yeah, good. Then we'd have people asking why a certain unit isn't one.
Oh God, you reminded me he existed. But yeah, let's just go into the tier list. For my 10th spot, should pop up here in a second. Yeah, my 10th spot, I put 23Q here. I'll make it short on why he's here. Literally, the only reason why he's here is because I think 3Q, or not 3Q, 23Q is like one of the best units in the game, or something like that, especially on global. He's like really good against that super boo fight. And that's really
How high are
about
you
it.
ranking that fight?
I would say it's probably about like the 4th hardest fight we have right now, 5th, somewhere around there. It's definitely a fight that matters though, because I think some units that are good are like higher than 3Q can actually get caught in that fight.
I see.
But
Yeah, he's definitely got like good stuff to him. I can see why you have him at 10.
yeah. Also, I don't think he's bad in like, but outside of like Cell Max, I don't think he's actually like. He's not unrunnable against Gogeta. I don't think he's ideal in there, but you can get away with him. He does debuff, so that is also a thing he has to build. I don't think his like getting his revive isn't hard. Obviously, his category is still really good. His team is still good. It continues to get buffs on buffs and will till the end of time. So I say he's like a good like 10th slot for me.
Yeah, 23rd team's always been one of his high points. I did not put him on my list, but I can see why you put him there. For my ranking, I went with Ma Junior at 10. Ma just is definitely a unit who isn't going to tank everything, and nor does he even have the highest damage. But I think his utility definitely warrants him still being here, and particularly the type of utility that his team can warrant. With all these different giants going around, once you get going, the team just can't really die because most of the supers are getting hit by the giants. The bosses aren't able to raise their attack, so the normals aren't hitting as hard, and you can usually finish fights before you've run out of all your giants. So I think he's got a lot of good stuff going on. Unfortunately, he doesn't work the best with some of the like top tier villains right now because like they're just not sharing a lot of teams and they're not like vibing the best as rotations because most villains are just kind of slot 2 units for some reason. But he's still pretty good, pretty solid. I like what he's bringing.
Okay, well, I guess it's my turn. Yeah, I got Super Trunks at 10. A lot of my list is going to reflect how good units are in Cell Max because I actually weigh fights differently. So right now I got like Cell Max is the hardest and the second hardest is Gogeta Blue. That's how I do it. And against Cell Max, this guy is terrible. Against every other fight, I actually do really enjoy using him. Against Gogeta Blue, I found the Ushers to be very valid now, and it's mainly just because of the advent of the 3Qs, like AGL, Super Easy A, Dragon Fist Goku, he's great there. The new Angel 3Q is amazing. It helps the Trunks team go by really fast through those beginning phases, and that's actually incredibly important because you want to spend as little time with Trunks exposed as possible. So against the Gogeta Blue fight, I found him to be pretty capable, at least as more capable than every other TUR that would be number 10 for me. So that's why he's here, but again, because Cell Max is the hardest fight, I have him at number 10. I just can't put him any higher. He's terrible, like god-awful in that fight.
Are you running the 3Qs as a rotation on that team, or curious?
Yeah. So what I would do, especially for Cell Max, for the like 10 runs that I did with them, I tried to run the 3Qs together. But for Gogeta Blue, you definitely run them together. And the reason why is because you are just able, like, essentially them together deletes one phase, no matter what phase it is. The only one that it doesn't is like Tech Gogeta, but by then you have the ushers ready to go.
Right. Yeah, it's a good pick for 10.
Yeah. I pretty much disagree with everything you said. Pretty much, I don't think Super Trunks has ever been like that great in short fights, and that is why a lot of people sour on him. Because when he released, that was literally all we had.
Yeah. Dismal future Red Zone.
I guess you had Omega, but like, who cared really? Like, if let's be real here, who cared at that point?
All right, for our number 9 spot, I have Frieza here. Now, honestly, this is very surprising. Even I'm surprising myself putting him here, but I can't. Like, Frieza is like a perfect unit for me, especially considering like one of my favorite units of all time is LR Cooler. So I love units like Frieza. The issue is I can't actually cope with Frieza's team anymore. It's just not like it's not fun to run his team at all. Or any setup he's on, really, it's just not fun. It's like really easy to get caught out, especially early. I guess his best setup right now would either be like Junior's team or like a weird setup on Broly's team. Actually, no, he's not on Broly's team because they haven't put him on transformation list yet for some reason. But yeah, Frieza would be a lot higher on this list. He'd probably be like 3 or something if he had the same like team that like Topo was given. But he doesn't. So like it's like, yeah, I can't really rate him much higher than this. I don't know. Hopefully they buff him in the future. If they do buff him in the future, I imagine he will jump up the tier list because I do think his quality of unit and his kit is fine. It's literally just his team.
Yeah, I'm not sure why Topo got special pose after special pose, and Frieza got stuck with AGL Bardock as his only buff. Well, buff quotations.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate for him. For my number 9, I went with Hirudegarn. Hirudegarn, like, just as on paper, he could probably go as high as like 4 on this list. The issue with Hirudegarn is that oftentimes he doesn't work how he looks on paper. He just dies. He does have the solid 70% chance to dodge, and theoretically, once he dodges enough, he will be basically untouchable with a good amount of damage to him, because he stacks up that crit and he's doing all these supers. And for villains, they need a slot 1 more than anything. That's what villains have needed, honestly, since they're usually always like these slot 2 units, so like any slot 1 unit that graces villains is usually good for like 2 years. But Hirudegarn he struggles, and his struggling is a lot of the reason why Frieza struggles, because he's the be-all or end-all for Frieza's team half the time. But I am ranking Frieza higher, simply because the fact of what he's impacting more than Hirudegarn, if things go well. But yeah, Hirudegarn he's very good. I feel like people look at 9 and think I'm being too harsh, but he has his struggles.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with basically anything that you said. I would actually put 3Q a little bit, or not 3Q, look at my brain right now, Hirudegarn a little bit higher, but my issue with Hirudegarn is mainly just that his base form hits really weakly, and it's for me, I've noticed anyway, it starts to stack a little bit too slow now. I think before we had the 9th anti-power creep, the defense stacking was quite good, especially with him in slot 1, but now it's quickly becoming not good enough at all. He also has issues with the Gogeta fight because the very second phase is Fizz, so even though you think that he has enough defense, you'll quickly find out he does not, and that is a issue, especially when you're running a team like Frieza's. But again, you could simply dodge and be fine. It's just a little bit scary whenever you have, let's say, 7 attacks aimed at Hirudegarn and he isn't strong enough to transform yet. So that's why he's number 9 for me. Perhaps whenever we maybe support options for villains would help him out a bit, but even then, I still think the stacking will be too slow. He's more so just an unfortunate release given the content of the game right now. He's great for Selmax though, because Selmax doesn't attack a lot, so you know his dodge rate being so high actually helps because there's less chances for him to fail. So I do kind of like him in that fight as long as he doesn't get touched.
I totally agree with you. I think just for dodge units in general, the rule of thumb is the less attacks you can put them in front of, the more reliable they're going to be. Which is why I think like AGL UI, for example, pre-EZA was misused a lot because people would still run him as a slot 1, but I think you can get away with him more as a slot 3.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes sense. Alright, moving on to our number 8 spot. I have Rose here. Now, I will say, this is really this is not a real slot because he's not out on JP yet. When he does eventually release on JP, who knows when he'll release at this point. It could be next month. It could be like 4 months from now. Like literally, who knows? But I think that his team is quite it's pretty good. It can clear like most of the content in the game with relative ease. He still has the domain issue, and until that domain issue gets fixed, he will not be any higher than what he is right now. Honestly, you could probably argue him lower for me. I don't like these first 3 units. I don't think are like gapping each other that much. Like I don't think it actually matters in terms of placements. But yeah, the potential of his team though, when he does come to JP, is pretty like large. Him and Kefla. I think Super Bosses is it's definitely. Super Bosses is one of those teams that people just treat like it's bad, but it's not like if you actually run the team, it's not bad at all. It's a very weird and quirky team, and I do think it has like characters on it that people just don't really like that much. So maybe that's why Super Bosses gets like the hate it does. But I mean, yeah, he has a good team. When you do get his domain out, Rose will look like a top 5 unit. The issue is you have to play with his domain when there's 2 other units on the team that want to also go into the domain. So, that's really his only issue. Once they fix that, though, I feel like he can be even higher. But for now, I like where I place him at. He's a pretty good tank. He does no damage in base. Transforms, his damage is pretty good. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about him.
I'll use this opportunity to talk a little bit about Rose because I don't have him on the list anymore. I'm actually surprised to see him there, considering what you said at the beginning, how you ranking the Super Brew fight highly. I think Rose just straight up sucks in the Super Brew fight. Like, that candy orb changing is horrible for Super Bosses. It destroys the cohesion of that team completely. And I'm starting to notice a trend with Super Bosses where a lot of the units on the team want Rainbow Orbs, and the only Rainbow Orb changers is Sleepy Beerus, who, depending on the situation, can be situationally alright, and Rose himself once he transforms, in which you can only transform one of them. So not only do you need to get Rainbow Orbs for both the Roses, you need to get orbs for Kefla, you need to get orbs for Broly Trio, you need to get orbs for LR Brienne. Like, you see what the problem is. The team just struggles too much for orbs. Theoretically, the team can be very competent, and I liked it a lot before, but I'm starting, it's just, the more I use the team, I'm starting to notice these orb issues that are plaguing it. Oh, also, the new physical rebrand, she also wants orbs. So,
yeah,
it's a struggle for that team, definitely.
I do want to point out that Topo also makes orbs, if you decide to run him on there.
Oh, right. Yeah, you can do that. Okay. So, I put 21 at 8. I'm not sure how she's gonna fare with you two, but I think 21's definitely solid. The issue, and like the reason I think there's a bit of a gap between the 10 to 8 spots and everything above that, is because I just don't think she impacts the fight consistently enough for her to go higher. Like, she's never going to be the reason that you completely die. She's a very, she is what she is, and she's not going to do anything out of the ordinary. She's gonna heal you a bit, she's gonna not do that much damage, she's gonna tank fairly okay. Like, she could probably tank most supers in the game post-super, but she does maybe suffer against, like, Tech Gogeta, for example, if you don't got all the wank in the world. But her most important strength right now is just linking with these Boo units, linking with Boo tanks, linking with the new Boo. But the problem with that is that she's not on the new Boo's team, which is probably why I think the STR Dragon Fist actually went up a little bit because of the fact that he links with Angel Coup, but this 21 can't link with Boo, which hurts her really on a lot of her teams. But she's a very good unit. It's just I just don't think she does enough to go higher.
I'll be talking about her myself here shortly, but for right now, I'd like to talk about Gamma 1. I haven't actually ran him in the Super Boo fight. I don't even really know for sure where I'd rank the Super Boo fight because I haven't really tried it on the private server. I've just been doing global runs, and on global, all I've been running is the best TORs team in the game and the second best TORs team in the game, and they both destroyed that fight. So for Gamma 1 in that fight, I won't be speaking on it. I will be speaking about him versus Salmax and him versus Gogeta Blue, and more specifically, him versus Beast. Now, I have Beast a little bit lower on the pedestal. He's not in that same difficulty tier as, say, Gogeta Blue or Salmax. But even still, he is a hard fight, the Fizz Beast, Spectacle Beast, and Gamma 1 just destroys him. Like, he shuts him down completely, which is a really big deal for me because this guy is so old. Furthering from that, he also gives defense support, and he's just a reliable tank overall, especially since he now has access to the Gamma 1 support from the LR Gammas, which is the reason why he's also still usable against the Gogeta Blue fight, because if he didn't have support options like that, I highly doubt he'd be able to survive the Gogeta Blue AoE, especially the post-super one. But from my experience, he is able to do that, and because of his team being so good, it's also a lot easier for you to just clear it fast. So even though you can still lose with him, and he's not really impacting the fight too much unless you're going up against Beast, I still value how defensively sound he is, even despite all this time. And in my experience, he's been a lot more reliable than the two beneath him against Selmax, which again, I think is the hardest fight in the game.
I didn't put Gamma 1 on my list, so I'll talk about him a little bit. You were talking about him in Selmax. I don't know. I feel like that's a fight that I judge him very harshly in. I feel like he'll take a good 200 to 100k normals before he really settles in, and it hurts. It hurts just how your run's going to go, because sometimes that might get rid of Cronin 18 support, or I don't know. That's what you and I run sometimes, but just he struggles a bit in Selmax, I think. But I definitely agree with him being good in Beast.
I'll talk about him, and I'll talk about him because I also don't have him on the list. I will say, since you haven't ran him in Super Boo, I actually have ran him in Super Boo. He's kind of okay. He kind of tanks normals. If he gets supered immediately, you could take a lot of damage. I think the main issue with Super Boo is also an issue that you brought up with Rose and the Super Bowl team, is the fact that Super Boo makes candy. So normally you'd run this guy next to like Gamma 2 or something, and you probably put Gamma 1 in like slot, or I'm Gamma 1 into the LR. You probably put Gamma 1 in slot 2 at that point. That way he just has a little bit more extra defense. The issue with that Super Boo fight is you can't always get like Gamma 1's, the LR Gamma 1's orbs due to the candy and stuff like that. Also, Super Boo tends to just immediately super most of the time. He has a super attack cooldown of 5, so most of the time you're gonna get supered in slot 1. Which does hurt Gamma 1 quite a bit. But yeah. Alright, moving on to our 7th slot. I have Rudigarn here. I used to have this guy higher, but as Emma said, on paper he looks really good, but in actuality it doesn't always work out like that. I do think I also have him a little bit lower because he also honestly, like, I know a lot of people run him on Boo's team. That is a pretty good team to run him on, but like, I don't see why at this point you wouldn't run full like Majin power on Boo's team. I guess if there's like a mission or something that requires you not to, you wouldn't. But like, I just feel like Boo's Majin power. So honestly, I hate that I'm talking about him on this tier list. I'd probably run Tech Gohan on Boo's team before Rudigarn, and that says a lot.
I get you.
But yeah, I don't know. Like Holden said, this guy's just a really unfortunate release. I don't know. We probably just need more support for like villains and stuff like that. Because I feel like if we get a support unit for literally any of these villains, that includes Boo as well, even Frieza too. We get like a pretty much competent support. All of these villain units go up. They just don't have as much support as all these super class units do. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get the 2024 version of like Garlic Jr. or something, and that might like buff Hirudegan up a little bit. But as it stands right now, I'd like his place at 7. Not bad, but not like he's not like top of the charts or anything.
Speaking of Dokkan Fest Garlic Jr. helping a unit, I'm going to talk about Frieza. This unit, so I try to judge units by teams like enough, but there comes a point where like when a unit is so talented individually that I tend to like give a little bit of leeway towards that team issue. I know there's some people who say Frieza is not even like top 80. I've heard like
I don't know what
his
they're on.
team's definitely a struggle, but like individually, this unit just does so much, and his offense can sometimes carry fights even despite the rest of the team just not being able to do anything defensively to like protect him and protect the team around him. But just fights can just sometimes be a struggle for this guy, and like I don't know, like look at a unit like Almond and Raisin, like they're not how they used to be in slot 1. You got Hirudegan, who we've already talked about at length in slot 1. He's gonna at times get you killed, but right now offensively, Frieza is the bar. There isn't really a lot of units who match him. One of the units who do matches him, we'll get to in a second. Well, he just does it pretty much all the time and for free, which is something that I just don't know why Frieza's so restricted like he is. He doesn't need to be restricted to a full Terrifying Conquerors team to just be runnable. I just don't get why they decided to do that. But he's insane. And in the event we do get stuff like a Dokkan Fest Garlic Jr. or a Lord Slug, expect this Frieza to jump up high and above units that most people wouldn't agree, but he would be.
Yeah, so, do I sound alright, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I will be talking about Frieza again quite shortly, as I said, for the unit that I'm going to be talking about right now, which is Android 21. Now, I just want to get this out of the way, okay? I do not care about this unit. I don't care about this character. I don't care about how she, like, really plays even. I'm not a fan of it. It's not my thing. However, I will not sit here and deny how much she has gotten buffed in terms of her own team. Now, is she usable on any other team? Not really. She's really only good on her own setup, and her own setup has gotten major buffs because of the boost celebration, and it'll probably receive even more buffs in part 2. Fingers crossed. So what I would like to mention about her is that she's just really good for Cell Max. She's really good for Gogeta Blue. Unless you get up against that tech phase, that might be a little bit scary. But you know, with the advent of now her having a freer revive unit on her team and in Fat Boo, with the advent of her being able to still dominate in the Super Boo fight. However, I would like to put an asterisk to that, as I have ran her against Super Boo on Global because we have all the Majin Buu units on Global. As long as you do not get supered before she attacks, she's great. But when she does, you're dead. Like you just died. It's over, and that's gonna be a problem if that continues to happen. If we get more AOE's, I'm hoping we don't. But as it stands now, for the hardest fight, in my opinion, she is pretty solid there, as long as she's dodging. If she's not dodging in that first form, she can get hurt really bad in Cell Max. But besides that, I don't really have much to say. I would say she's the last unit on my list before I get to the big guys. So, you know, with that being said, for me, she's just kind of like the gatekeeper.
Yeah,
That's a good way to put it.
I actually agree with that gatekeeper statement, especially because I'm gonna go on to my number 6 slot, which is 21. Yeah, pretty much same thing. If you get hit by that AoE, she'll die. If you don't, that she gets a super attack first, she'll be fine. Her team got plenty of buffs from the Topo celebration because of the physical rubric and also this boost celebration. Yeah, she just has like one of the biggest glow-ups, like out of like when she released. Because when she on release 21, I hated this unit with a passion. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. I literally despise this unit. But the moment she got like out of this little AOE meta and started getting like a real team and like real buffs and stuff, and it also does help that she's AGL too. I mean, this meta is like very favored towards AGL units right now. Like all of that just massively busts her. Although she doesn't, I don't know. She's like a jack of all trades, but she's not a master at anything right now. So it's like, yeah, I used to have her higher, but I don't know. I'm just now that I'm using her a lot more. Also, going back on what Holden said, she is really only runnable on her own team. I don't see you using 21 on any other team besides her own. But her team is still really good, so it can clear most of the content in the game with relative ease, except for super boost. You just have to pray on super boost. But yeah, overall, I think she's a solid like little gatekeeper before I get onto like my top 5.
All right, I get to be the first to talk about big man. I have had a roller coaster of emotions with this unit, Topo. And on release, I absolutely despise this unit. He is not, I still believe it, he is not a great slot 1 unit. And I don't care how many times people will try to like just show clips of you getting lucky and not getting supered on the first hit, and then him doing well after the fact. He is just not good enough in slot 1, and at the time when he released with this sub-variant of superheroes that we had seen a million times. And it was just not the best spot for those units anyway. So like, what was he doing? Why were you picking Topo over any unit? Like, I just didn't really see the point. However, since then, Topo has gotten special pose buffs. And that's really the way I'm ranking him, is on a special pose team, not with like AGL UI or SSB, but like with these units like Ginyu, with Go tanks, with Tech Go tanks. I think with these units, he has more of a purpose as a support unit early on. Even after his guard runs out, he can kind of hold his own as a floater support until you need to transform. And then you can just kind of float him off, and he's never really going to get you killed, as long as you just don't put him in front of too many attacks. And I don't think you need to, because I think the team has enough defensive viability on rotation. But this unit, like, he's definitely better. Also, the Super Brew fight, which just came out, he gets to nullify that, and that's a good plus for him as well. So if we start seeing more fights where he can nullify, that's definitely going to improve his ranking and just overall defensive viability. But I have never seen the case for him as like top 2 in release, a lot of people thought, or top 3. I think he sits up around this like mid top 5 range. You can maybe put him up to like 4, 5, but I'm settling in on 6.
Well, so you're a lot more confident than me, I'll say that, because I actually share a very similar take with you now that I'm realizing your rankings here, but I don't have the heart to say it, but we'll get to that when we get to it. AGL First Form Frieza, I know everybody else has already talked about him, so let me talk about him because I love my damage dealers. There is only one unit on this list who could even come close to comparing to Frieza's damage, and that's my number 1. Spoiler, sorry, I guess. But the problem with that is that he still doesn't beat it. Frieza is easily the hardest hitting turn 1, turn 3, and even turn 5, unless there's berserkers involved, wink wink, unit in the game, period. Even as a TUR, he's just that strong. The problem is that you just can't see that, really, except on a bad, mid, underperforming team that struggles to beat the hardest fight in the game. But again, Frieza himself individually is insane in that fight. I mean, tanking supers turn 1, doing loads of damage turn 1, turn 3, turn 5. Like, he's incredibly strong for Cell Max. He's incredibly strong once you get to Gogeta Blue, if you can get there fast. Like, there are things that go well with Frieza himself that makes me put him this high. It's just, we're waiting. Like, we're in this limbo period where he's just kind of sitting around, just waiting for buffs, and nobody's there. The only person that's there is Int Hurdigarn, who is, like I said, not really reliable. So that's why he's here for me at number 6. He would be higher again. He'd be as high as maybe even number 1, depending on what buffs he does get. It all depends. And maybe he'll just be out of the top 10 by the end of the year if he doesn't get any buffs. Hopefully that's not the case, but it could be. It's all predicated around who releases. But for now, I have him at 6. And yeah, that's really all I gotta say about this guy.
To piggyback on him and Cell Max as well as like Gogeta and stuff, he does have that attack lowering, which none of us mentioned. That's definitely very helpful. He can save some of his lower level teammates that you're bringing with him.
Oh, dude, easily. Especially since there are also other units on his team, and this has just been a historical thing for Terrifying Conquerors, where there's just a lot of debuffers. So, I mean, more likely than not, I mean, if we do get another buff, he's probably also, he or she, whoever, is probably also going to debuff attack. It's just a thing that they put on a lot of these Terrifying Conqueror villains.
Yeah, I will say Frieza does have a few near guaranteed buffs coming in the form of like super easy-ish. So that is something to look forward to, at least.
Yeah, like for example, like Fizz FBF, who, by design on his original EZA was meant to be slot 1. I have no idea how they're going to ensure that that's still the case after his Super EZA, but I'm sure they might find a way. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, Super EZAs are 2 out of 2 right now, so I have no doubt he'll be good. All right, moving on to our 5th on the list now. This is going to be very, very satisfying to look at. Yeah, I have Dragon Fist at 5. I will say, little blooper here. We have made a video. We tried to make a video like this in the past. I will not disclose what happened to that video, but yeah.
Coward.
Beforehand, I didn't have Dragon Fist this high in terms of like the units that were out when we made that video. I've grown on him so much since, especially using him at 55%. I feel like this is one of like the few units that I can say on my own account that I've used at 55% that I get the same level of performance as somebody who would have this unit rainbowed. Like, I don't think there's much of a difference outside of like damage, of course. But that's like Dragon Fist. He didn't do that much damage in base. I mean, he'll give you like a 20 mil attack set or something like that, but that's really it. You're really using him for his standby, and I think his standby is a fantastic piece of utility on all of his teams. I used to think that it wouldn't be that big of a deal with like STR Super Vegito running around, but no, it's quite impactful even with Vegeta on the team. I don't think it actually matters, like, having 2 scouters like that, especially when you can get one a lot earlier. Because on the teams that are running around right now, you're not getting Super Vegeta out on turn 3. You can definitely get Dragon Fist out on turn 3, though. Or 5 or 6 or whenever you prefer it, really. It's just an excellent piece of utility. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about him. Also, I have found that the defense support in his standby is actually impactful as well. But yeah.
Oh, did you finally realize that, huh? Yeah, okay.
I think you bring up a great point with the 55% thing. I think there's a lot of people who care about that. And like for that, I think Dragonfish just does an amazing job at doing his role no matter what you really have in him. I like using this guy just as a floater. Like, he's the quintessential floater in the game. He, defensively, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get the 70% chance to dodge. He's going to get pretty great defense once he supers, though he can kind of caught by some normals, like these post-super normals. But the standby just gives you a free turn of him being a slot where you don't have to worry, unless you're getting the most horrendous luck with his RNG. I've seen some people get fucked by the 90% dodge, but he's a very reliable unit, and he is now serving as a link battery for top TUR right now, and that matters a lot. So this guy's doing great, and it looks like he's aging pretty well.
Yeah, so this is what I was going to and getting at earlier with my last slot. I like to make this a big story arc where I just keep on leaving little crumbs for me to talk about shortly after. So about Riku, right? I feel like I would be publicly shamed for one of my takes regarding this character, which is why he's just here at number 5. But, you know, in hindsight, I suppose I should let it be known later in the video. But for right now, I'll just say he's number 5 because I don't want to make our editors mad at me because they're probably already pretty mad at me. But anyway, Riku's great. I love this guy. He's always been good. He's good in every fight. It doesn't matter where. Whenever we're talking about STR Super Vegito, I don't want to be that guy. I'm going to be that guy. I don't want to be him, but you cannot guarantee it every fight. I know we like to think that it is guaranteed, but it just literally isn't. The thing that is guaranteed, no matter what, is his standby. Unless you just clear fast enough and you never get below HP. I guess then it's not really guaranteed. But regardless, there is always, you always know in the back of your head, I will have this to go for slot 1. And the reason why it's so impactful, in my opinion, especially with Angel SSJ3 Goku, is because the second that he runs out of his intro, this guy's standby is ready to go no matter what. And that is so vitally important because it allows you to have that slot 1 free. It allows you to have an instant 70+ mil APT attack just ready to go. Scouter ready to go. For me personally, I don't even have issues with him with his 70% dodge because he loves me and he knows better. So he'll dodge seven attacks in a row with 70% dodge for me because he's just that guy. And then Angel 3Q will just drop his 100+ mil active turn and be invincible in slot 2. The combo between these two units is incredible. It's also a combo to use him in his standby with the super easy A, but again, now that we have Angel 3Q, we don't really need to do that anymore. And his own team, even if you don't really think it's necessary anymore, because again, we have Angel 3Q, it's still a good team. Having 2 of these standbys running around guaranteed, having, you know, Angel 3Q, having Super Vegito on that team as well. Like, you have plenty of tools to use, and out of every unit from technically, quote unquote, last year, this guy is easily by far the best, and I think he will remain and maintain that spot as the best unit from that last year of 2023, because his kit is just timeless. It's really going to be difficult for it to age out. The only way that it can do that is if we have a dodge canceling fight. And looking at my list, I don't really know. Looking back at my list for units out of dodge canceling fights that could happen in the future from 2023, there's another unit that released shortly with him, a certain int character who I don't really like that much. He would also suck if we get dodge canceling fights, so it's not like he'd be the only one, so I don't really think it'd be a fair means to discredit this guy if we do again get dodge canceling fights. But as it stands right now, this guy's great. He's great against the new Super Buu fight, especially since again you can just go into standby. He's great against Gogeta Blue. He's great against Cell Max. There's really nothing I can say that's bad about this character other than his damage is very, very slightly starting to fall off in base. But I still think he's the standard. 30+ mil is still the standard in my opinion. But yeah, I'm done slurping him. We can move on. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one statement that we'll talk about in that little rant there, but I will say the only negative. I think there's only one little negative that you can bring in this guy's cap right now, and that is the fact that he is not a Majin Buu Saga character, and that is unfortunate. But outside of that, he works great with Angel Q, so no issues with there.
Yeah, that is fair. I did forget to mention that, but yes, that is true.
Yeah, he's not. I like to headcanon of him as one because the tech one is on Majin Buu Saga, which is funny. And the movie
the HBO one is too.
Yeah, the movie also came out. It's basically the same art, but whatever.
Now the main problem area is up here. All of this going on up here is what's causing me the most physical discomfort. It's like a visceral reaction of discontent coming from this area.
All right, for my number 4 spot, I have Topo here. A lot of people don't like Topo because it's Topo, and I know a lot of people are just tired of like superhero stuff. Well, technically it's not super bosses, but like Dragon Ball Super stuff in general. I will be the first to say, buckle up, because we got a lot more coming, considering Topo got a Dokkan Fist. But I do think this guy. I mean, he's been long overdue for a Dokkan Fist. Like, I don't even think this is like a tournament of power thing. We should have had a Hakai, like, got a Destruction Topo Dokkan Fist a while ago. But now that he actually has one, design-wise, I'm not sure if they really imitated like what he was in the anime. Outside of that, though, I do think he's a really fun unit. He's a support. He's kind of a tank in slot one. Sometimes he's not. Just depends on the situation. But because his team literally got Giga Both in his celebration, I don't think it matters that much. When you have people like Ginyu, you have people like Physical Ribrianne, who will get her orbs on this team. Like, I don't see like a universe where like running Topo's team, just the special pose part, not even the tournament of power part, which you can do. Just the special pose part of this team, I don't see where Topo's really ever in danger of like dying outside of some like rare situations or just somebody misplaying. Damage wise, Topo doesn't do much damage. I know like a lot of people awk and gaw over like the 20 mil, like, but he only does 20 mil, and he has no additionals or crits unless he's transformed, which on his active turn he does a little bit of damage. It's still not really that crazy damage though. But I mean, he supports, he rainbow or changes, he's a good tank. I have no issues with this unit. Honestly, I think they should do every celebration like how they did Topo, and hopefully they do continue to doing that moving forward. They're doing it with the boost celebration right now, so we'll see.
So we know the story with Super Trunks. It hasn't changed. It changed a little bit maybe with the arrival of Tech Vegeta. He's gotten a very good partner that can go all the way with him. But Super Trunks has one bad fight right now. One really bad fight, and that's Max. You have to do some really weird shenanigans to get him through. But I think outside of that, this is the best meta for Super Trunks since his release. He is able to go into all these fights. You're pretty safely going to get into Super Trunks. Maybe you might take some damage and be below HP on a turn, but I think his team's good enough to where even if he's not able to usher right away, you're fine. And Super Trunks transformed is still one of the kings of TORs right now in terms of damage. Even on his active turn, he can compete with Angel Ku in damage wise. So like he's bringing that, but he's also bringing an action break in base. He's bringing an usher transformed. And he's just, like, when you're running both of him, you've got double ushers. And that's just giving you so much free room to just do whatever you want in any kind of fight. And it all that really, like, held him back for all these months was just the Fusion Zamasu reign and, like, those Dismal Future fights, which really fucked him up. But now he's got fights that he's really good in. He's getting support on his team almost, like, every single month, it seems like. Now he's got Angel Ku on it, and I think you can make Angel Ku work in a lot of situations. And just I am a lot higher on him than other units, but just what he can bring in terms of the utility aspect and the damage, it's more than I think a lot of the TORs in this list. So that is why he is 4, and nobody else will have him that high ever.
Certainly not wrong there. So for my number 4, this is like where, the others might be upset at me, but I actually would probably just say that 3Ku's better. Now, put down the pitchforks real quick, please, people. 3Ku has this beautiful fight called Cell Max, right? And in this wondrous fight of Cell Max, I have noticed a particular pattern for Topo. Topo's great. We all love Topo, except for those who don't, I guess. But the problem with Topo is, it's a similar problem that I've noticed with number 3 that I'll talk about shortly. I'm sure we'll all talk about him shortly. But the issue with him is that first turn in base for Topo. It's so scary. You're not guaranteed to just eat the super. You'll take a lot of damage. And, that's also very similar with many units on Topo's team. Because those units, some of them are just a little bit dodgy, to say the least. Now, That is also the case with Riku. A lot of his units are also dodgy, but then again, a lot of them aren't. And the ones that aren't also don't take anything, like a certain angel haloed individual with long, beautiful golden locks. But anyway, I digress. Topo is still really great and is obviously still in my top 5. The reason I had him at 4, prior to seeing that Emma was so confident to not have him above Riku, props to her, by the way.
Thank you.
It was because I actually disagree with what Enerjak said. I know, what a first right there, guys. Imagine that. So I actually do really like Topo's active turn now, because beforehand, I would agree, it wasn't that special. But whenever you throw on the 15 trillion % support that he has access to, with Ginyu, with the Pride Trooper EZA, that turn can hit really hard, especially for a unit who is designed to tank moderately. I'll just say that, moderately tank. Occasionally, which again he can do. Sometimes, I guess it just depends on when he wakes up on what side of the bed. Same for the boss. But despite that, he's somewhat a reliable tank, and on that active turn, he hits really hard. The orb changing is magnificent for the other units that are on his team, and of course, the support is much appreciated. I think with the advent of all these EAs that came into Celebration, I'm a lot higher on him than I used to be. Obviously, not high enough, I guess, but even still, I think he's a shining example, as Enerjak said, of a unit that we need to see repeated throughout this year. We need a unit who is, introduced, has missing holes, obviously, but gets those holes filled up with his celebration throughout, and that is something that Topo can say, that Fizz Goku Black, that AGL Frieza, those guys cannot say that, and it is why, for me, they're a lot lower than Topo, especially Fizz Goku Black. So, yeah, that's all I got to say about Mr. Sloppy Toppy, the Slopster Topster, Mr. Topo.
All right.
I will say one more thing about Topo. When talking about his team, I do think, like Emma said, of only special pose, I don't think of his team as... you can run, UI Goku SSB on there, but why? I don't really think of his team, with those units in mind. So I will say the special pose variant of his team, the only con that I've seen with it is it doesn't have any units that heal. While all of these other teams usually do have healing right now. Of some
You
way,
mean
shape, or
besides
form.
on turn 3 and possibly on turn 5 with a 50% chance from the Go tank?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. It Go tanks healing. Relying on that is kind of wild.
Does he get that?
I'm sure it'll be fine.
He gets that after his it's on his third appearance or third turn after transforming, something like that.
Oh wait, no, that's right. It's not even turn 3. I forgot.
Yeah, he's not getting that when he transforms immediately.
Unfortunate.
But yeah, on to our number 3 slot. This will also be very satisfying to look at. It's pretty obvious. I mean, Vegeta, nothing changed since Vegeta released. He's still Vegeta. You slap him in slot 1 against everything that's not Cellmax, and he performs. He stacks, he guards. What more could you want from a unit? Oh, except for the fact that when you transform him, he actually hits like a Megaton bomb. And he also has an action break when he does that. And he also still tanks everything at a certain point. Again, outside from Cellmax.
Uh-huh.
I think by the time he gets to 10%, he can tank Cellmax reasonably well. One thing you did forget to mention is obviously his team. I think Super Saiyans is definitely one of the better non-superhero teams right now.
I didn't mention his team. I thought that was who's gonna disagree that his team is bad?
Yeah. As has been alluded to many times, Vegeta does suffer a bit in Cellmax when you just throw him in slot 1. If you can get away with putting him slot 2 a couple times, because Cellmax has a very funny little tendency to not attack at the very beginning in slot 1. So what you can do a lot of times is you can bring King Vegeta and just put him in slot 1, and then Vegeta after that turn should be pretty reasonable against Cellmax, but he can definitely have instances like Holden and Jack have said where he just gets torn up by Cellmax turn 1. which is
He just tucks him in. He just tucks him into sleep. It's fine.
He's just guard, and what is it, like he has like 18% damage reduction. Like it's not enough against a 2.5 million turn one, but I digress. He's very good. He's got very good links. Does very good damage once he gets into his active turn, and yeah, there isn't really much you can say negative about Vegeta other than that cell max thing.
Yeah, so that's, my biggest criticism of this unit. I remember whenever he first came out, that was the very first event I tried him in, because again, I think it's the hardest fight. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me say that, and I just kept losing, just over and over and over again. The problem with this character that, again, we've talked about is you just can't rely on him in that first bit of cell max. As soon as he stacks up a little bit, you're great, but I mean, the wrong unit gets supered or he gets supered and you're taking a lot of damage turn one. Now, every single other event, he's fantastic. He's probably even the best TUR in the game for the boss rush stage. Not that I think that that's one of the hardest fights in the game, but it is still a pretty, moderately difficult fight, and he's probably just the best TUR in the game for that fight, or just even best unit. I'm not even sure. He's insane in there. His team is magnificent. I love any team that features Broly on it. Their combination is also magnificent, especially for the Gogeta fight, because you just use Broly and then you use Vegeta's active, slot 1 for Vegeta, slot 2 with Broly, and Broly is Vegeta's not actively debuffed by Broly's domain either, so that's another plus for that combination. There's just really, not much to say bad about him. I mean, his team's always going to be good. He's always going to be great against fights. I'm sure he's good against Super Buu. Haven't tried him there yet personally, but the type advantage definitely helps, I'm sure. Yeah, he's just going to be a solid unit that's probably just going to stand the test of time for quite some time.
Yeah, I agree.
I also want to point out another thing about his team. I don't think it's not really a big factor, but I know a lot of people are struggling with that int mission against Bobity's forces or whatever it's called. Yeah, this Vegeta and his team, you literally it's so easy with this Vegeta. Vegeta will come out when you're on Buu and Bobity's face, transform, and he will literally instantly kill the boss on his active skill turn.
Right.
But at that point, the other int units don't even matter. But yeah, that just goes to show how good Vegeta is. Even with how good he is, though, he's not better than. I'm pretty sure we all have the same last two units. At least I hope.
We just want to reveal both of them at the same time, because it's pretty just.
Yeah. Honestly, yes, because I want to do that in particular because
Whoa!
Now, hold on, Holden. Before you come at me, I think both Buu and Goku are number one. I just had to put Buu ahead of him.
Fuck! What the hell are you talking about?
I put Buu ahead of him simply because he's a villain, and I think villain units are going to be more valuable in the long run. That is the only reason why Buu is ahead of him.
Biased.
I mean, sure. Yeah, you can chalk it up to bias. I do think they're both 1-1. I think they are both the top of the charts when it comes to TURs, etc. I guess I'll talk about which one do you guys want to talk about first? I don't think it matters.
Since you're the one who starts, let's talk about Goku.
Okay. Yeah, Goku, bro. Goku is like so insane. Goku's like one of the few like super class units that I've ever seen that they've given like this little golden Frieza damage reduction thing to. I don't think a lot of people don't talk about it, but I hope people do realize that Goku's not gonna age like ever. There's always gonna be some sort of event where you can use Goku. If there will be a short event, you'll just use him. He has guard and 90% DR. He's guaranteed to not take damage for the entire game's lifespan, pretty much. I like even like level like 999 EZAs. I don't see it hurting this guy if you ever get to that point for some reason. But he's doing all this right on top of the fact that his damage, like many of you have mentioned before, is like he hits what Frieza does a little bit less, I believe. I'm not sure how much by how much less it is, but it's not. They're not far off for turns 1 through
Well,
5.
Yeah, I'll just let you keep talking. Sorry.
Okay. I don't think they're that far off, but regardless, the damage that he's doing is insane. That like he's definitely if he's like the second hardest hitting TUR in the game. He might be one of the hardest hitting units in the game in general for the first like couple of turns. Top 5 at least, I imagine. But that damage on top of the fact that he's also this like tanky, like I don't know what they were thinking when they made this Goku. I guess they thought like because his whole thing is like, oh, he's buying time or he's stalling for time. But even after that little damage reduction passive of his runs out, he still has 30% DR, and if you pop the active skill, you will get all of his on super defense instantly. You can put him in slot 1, so he'll have guard, and he's still not taking damage from any of the hardest hitting bosses in the game, while also still doing a lot of damage.
Now, I had a lot of arguments with people on day one with this unit because obviously until Truth makes his stance on a unit, everyone's just going to say the most outlandish thing in the world until they start agreeing with Truth blindly. But this unit, like, I think we really need to reevaluate what we consider to be great damage when we talk about this unit, because I think people have gone too long underrating how good early damage is. Because you can run all these setups with Broly, and Broly is insane as an offense unit. I'm not discrediting that. But Goku is doing all this stuff turn 1, and his damn team is going to go faster than Broly's a lot of times. Like he's going to make it to go GW on turn 5. He's going to beat it definitely by the end of turn 6. He is just making these events go so fast. Like, I'm not going to say he's better than, as an offensive unit than Broly, but I think Goku is, like, top 3. I don't care who's ahead of him, like the Super Saiyans or whoever else is in front of him in APT. I just think, like, this guy doing it as early as he does just makes runs go so fast, and his team is capable of it, and his slot 1 abilities makes it so maybe if you're just not... Maybe if some of the units you're bringing with him, like, can't handle how fast you're going, he can go in slot 1, he can handle it. So, this unit is just incredible. Just in all sense of the word. Only issue maybe you could poke in is, like, I think he only has over in a flash.
Same lineage now.
Same lineage as well. So that helps him too, but a lot of the Saiyan units do run prepared for battle, so that can maybe hurt. But outside of that, like, this unit, like, as you said, he's never going to H in terms of turn 1 and 3. Eventually there'll come a point where, like, turn 5 and beyond, he's not going to be as runnable, but he, like, just like LR Golden Frieza, he's always going to have those fights where his niche is going to be so wanted and so valuable.
So I'm going to bring up something that nobody else has brought up, and I don't even think anybody else even gives a shit to think about it, but I do want to shed light on it because we've seen it once before recently, and we have seen in the files that it may be coming up soon and shortly. Crits. Enemy crits. Can we talk about enemy crits real quick? So the way that critical hits work, let me shed some light for those who don't know. Basically, crits will bypass defense. They bypass type advantage. They bypass guard. It doesn't matter what you have. It will bypass it. The only thing that it doesn't bypass is dodge, and you guessed it, damage reduction. So with that said, I don't think enemy crits are going to work the same way that they do for our units. I'm pretty sure that if they do start implementing it, they're going to have a separate attack set that they do the crit modifier on. Because a 1.7 million normal from Gogeta critting would one-shot literally any team in the game. A 500k normal critting would one-shot any team in the game. You'll literally just die in one hit. So they're probably going to have a smaller stat that gets the crit if we do see crits. Now, with that said, think of any tank you can think of. Any tank in the game, period. Goku is better against crits. He will never not be good against crits. Damage reduction will always be the bastion of defense. This wall that will never be toppled against crits is DR. And Goku has the most of it. And he always will, most likely. So if we're talking longevity here, in terms of a defensive character, which Enerjak shed light on earlier, no matter what bosses implement, unless they have crits work to where it cuts through DR, which would be a nightmare, I don't think they'll do that. This unit is even defensively sound against a hypothetical boss crit when every other character on this list that doesn't dodge would not be. And that is important to me because, again, we've seen the files that crits could be coming very soon. We're already getting enemy skills. There's a very high chance that those enemy skills could implement a crit chance. We don't know for sure yet. So that's important. Now, talking about the here and now, yes, this is probably the fastest team in the game. And it is 100% all because of 3Q and because of the fact that his name has that little parentheses that says Angel. You get to run this guy next to AGL SSJ3, you get to run this guy next to STR Dragon Fist Goku, and hopefully soon enough we'll be able to run him next to the Angel SSJ2 Goku. Praying, fingers crossed. And that combination is insane. We have the Super Tech or Super Easy A Tech SSJ3 Gotenks, who is very easy to get the 11 key on this guy's team over on JP because they only share 3 key. So all you need to do is just make sure that you can get that 2 key for Gotenks, and he's hitting like a truck with that 11 key. It's great burst damage. The Easy A, it takes a little bit to get going, but I found that he's still able to hang with a speed variant of this team against Gogeta Blue because even in Super Saiyan, that Int Gotenks Easy A is fantabulous against the tech phase of Gogeta, doing lots of damage thanks to type attack boost and thanks again to him having all the additionals. So whenever we're analyzing this Goku against all the hardest fights in the game, he's able to face tank the Super Buu Super, even if he's not in slot 1. He's able to face tank Cell Max. Literally, no matter what the scenario is, no matter what the slot is, no matter what the turn is, he can just survive Cell Max. He's also one of the strongest hitters against Cell Max. He's one of the strongest units against STR Gogeta Blue. I don't think there's many other TORs except for Frieza who and Vegeta on his active turn who outdamage him. And by I don't think, I mean I know there isn't. So that's a huge deal. There's just so much to talk about with this guy in terms of how dominant he is, how overpowering he is. And I think a lot of that was lost initially on release because a lot of people were looking at his team and they just weren't thinking about playing the game like I love to play the game. And that's just blitzing through things and blowing down doors. Yeah. And that's what this unit is. And that is just beautiful. I love that we recaptured that same playstyle that we've had with every other SSJ3 Goku. Fizz 3Ku is the same way, and SSJ2 Goku probably not. They were a little undertuned, but AGL 3Ku same way. We had Tech Dragon Fist the same way. It is just it's a tradition for 3Kus to be some of the hardest hitting units ever, and I'm just so happy that he came out this way. He's my number one for a reason, and I hope and I think, given last year, that it's going to stay that way for most of this year. But we'll see.
All right. Since you got him number one, go for it, Jack.
Yeah. Moving on to the other amazing Buu unit, or Buu Saga unit, I'm sorry. Buu, like I said, I only have him at number one because I think both Buu and Goku are number one. I think they're great at doing like different things. I just value Buu being a villain unit in general more than what Goku is doing. That's not really like saying like Buu is better necessarily. That's more like just, yeah, we like the extreme classes in the gutter. We're having fun with like Majin Power right now, but I don't think Majin Power will be getting a buff for like the next year or something after this. So,
please stop.
Wow. While 3Ku is going to be getting continuous buffs on repeat all year. I can almost guarantee you that much. I can't guarantee Majin Power would do that, but I can guarantee 3Ku will. Which is why
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but real quick, I do want to mention, I forgot to mention it. Tech Super Gogeta. He's on 3Ku's team.
Yeah.
Another thing about him is that he has an above HP condition and as opposed to the below HP condition, so he might just end up replacing Vegito, depending on how good he is on that team build for the blitzing strat. But yeah, continue.
Yeah. Like I said, Buu, I mean, he literally does everything I wanted a villain unit to ever do. Buu does it. He has a revive, which villains, we only have one, which is Metal Cooler. And like...
Look out!
Yeah. We have a bootleg in revive with Incel, but he's not running. Even I can't cook for Incel right now. He's cooked. It's over for him. But he has a revive. He has an usher. He has all this healing. I do notice a lot of people are like disappointed with his damage. I agree because I also love damage. I think people are slightly too harsh on his damage though. If you have him at 55%, I kind of understand. If you have this guy with any amount of dukes or equips, though, I would like you all to not forget that he can still quad super, and if you give him a full crit build, which I hope you're giving this guy, and not full dodge or something, he will do actually pretty, like, satisfactory damage. Again, just off the fact that he can quad super. Another thing that I will talk about too as well, which this isn't an issue for Goku right now. I don't think it will be an issue in the long run. But they both need a Majin Buu Saga unit for their intro, but Goku gets a lot more off of that than Buu does. All Buu gets is like 10% HP only. So you can run this unit theoretically without a Majin Buu unit. Like it doesn't actually matter. I think again, just like Goku, I think this unit is also going to age gracefully because it'll come a point where he'll be a cockroach like Metal Cooler was. The only difference is this guy, after he revives, will come on his next turn and then pop an Usher, which is that's insane tech to even think about. No matter how like hard the boss hits, you will always have this guy with his one turn of a free reset and then another free turn right after that. And that is very good utility.
Right. Definitely some good stuff said there. Like, if I'm going to glaze Super Trunks for being able to do the same thing with giving you 2 free turns, like, you gotta talk about Boo being able to do that just by himself, not having to run, like two Super Trunks. Boo does that by himself with just a revive and an Usher. Boo, defensively, is very sound. He stacks with multiplicative defense. At the current moment, the community is talking a lot about Tech Ultimate Gohan, and one of the problems that Tech Ultimate Gohan faces is that he only really has the stack defense and start of turn. He doesn't have multiplicative defense like Boo does. This makes Boo get very high with guard very quickly. He's one of the fastest stackers in the game, for sure. I only really spot... There's 2 big reasons why I think Goku is a little comfortably ahead of Boo right now. And for one, I think it's because of the fact that he, like Metal Cooler, he himself needs to die. And there are times where this is not an issue at all. You can easily just get him to die by throwing him in slot 1, and boom, you're ready to go. There are other times, however, where Boo will not die, and this starts to pose a little bit of a problem, but because he's not going to do as much damage otherwise, and the team just runs slow. Truth, like a guy with a rainbow box is going into the boss rush 30 turns with this Boo. It's definitely a struggle. Sometimes.
Honestly, I still don't know how he accomplished that, even with a Boo team. But yeah.
Talking about his damage. Yeah. Oh, sorry. You can go ahead.
No.
I just wanted to make a quick. Because you were talking about his revive. I like this is kind of just a me thing. I hate the fact that he's in. But yeah, continue.
Okay, the other thing, well, actually, I changed my mind. Not 2 things, 3 things. Because one of the things, for sure, Holden's been talking a lot about Cell Max. I think there's one thing that I really don't like about Boo, and it's that you need to proc his own revive to get the Usher, and that makes it a problem with the Boo team, where you can die with one Boo and he'll have his Usher ready to go, but then the other one is still waiting until turn 6. I think if Boo had that, where like you just get them both immediately with one dies, Boo would just be insane. It'd just be so free in Cell Max, and that definitely matters a lot. Cell Max is definitely why I have 3Q so high as well. And then we're talking about his damage. As Enerjak pointed out, you can give him a full crit build and he'll do some pretty alright damage, but to counterpoint that, how is that much different than like 21? Like 21, like there was a time where I coded for her damage and gave her full crit, but like Boo is like basically just getting like 2 million above each attack stat she does. It's not that much different. Just when you're depending on just hidden potential system crit, you're leaving a lot of damage off the table. Like no super effective, no passive crit, nothing like that. Boo doesn't have an active skill attack that does anything really. Like he has the Usher, which does some damage, but it's not meaningful damage. It's like a 4 million. But I think that's areas where Boo struggles. Slot 1, he can kind of work, but once you pop the revive, the team kind of is in need of a really great slot 1. also, it needs a good damage dealer. So I'm hoping that the part 2 LR is like a Kid Buu who does do good damage, but knowing Dokkan, it'll be a Mr. Satan. So we'll see if Buu actually does get that.
Yeah, so for me, one of the greatest strengths that this Buu has given me is that it's finally, after 9 years, we get a standalone Fat Buu premium release. The face of Majin Buu saga as a whole is Fat Buu. So that was, this celebration in general, in total, has just been one big wet dream for me, barring one release. But, we're not going to talk about that guy today. So in Fat Buu, right? I have an issue with him, or at least, excuse me, I had an issue with him where, for me personally, I felt that even after his revive in slot 1, after you use that Usher, like Emma mentioned, the other one doesn't have the Usher ready immediately. And for that reason, the slot 1 for that other turn was a little bit washy. It was a little bit scary, in my opinion, because even despite him having guard, if you get supered before he can super and get his multiplicative defense buff, it can be a little bit hazy. Thankfully, my Lord and Savior, my baby boy, the unit that I've carried for so many years in content that he had no place going into and still came out somewhat on top. Tech Exchange Buu EZ8, and I think he is honestly the perfect slot 1 for this team. Not only is he, a filler slot 1 until Imp Boos stack up fast enough, he's also a filler slot 1 for Fizz LR Buu Tank / Buuhan. And the biggest thing that I would like to mention about that is that it's perfect for Gogeta, but not Cellmax. And the reason why is because Cellmax, it's not about slot 1ing in that fight. So in my opinion, the value is lost a little bit. But unlike what Emma said, in Cellmax, because he's always guaranteed to get that 150% attack and defense on super, Imp Buu is basically always going to tank after that revive. And even though you don't have the Usher, what you do have is Tech Exchange Buu stunning and sealing. And that is so powerful in combination with this Buu, with their heals, with their Ushers, with the revive. Like, any event imaginable that you can think of where this guy would perform poorly, you're probably not going to see it because his team works in such a way that you're almost guaranteed for success. And I say almost because, again, if another unit does get caught, the run is over, unfortunately. So, we're still waiting for that damage dealer. I mean, personally, for me, even though I'm a Majin Power guy, I am the Majin Power guy. I think it would be quite hilarious if once again, instead of LR Kid Buu, we get another LR Buuhan. So just keeping the no Kid Buu allegations for an LR going strong and still alive, that would be fantabulous. And I think Buuhan being the damage dealer, a standalone LR Buuhan, would be perfect in my opinion. But Kid Buu would be great too. So we'll just have to wait and see. We still need a support unit for his team as well. Same thing for Goku, really. But as it stands right now, the reason I have Goku so much higher above, well, not so much higher, but in the way that I refer to them, he's so much higher, is because the damage that Buu is missing, Goku is just drowning in it. His whole team is drowning in that damage, whereas Buu is nothing but stall and heal. And while that's great for right now, at the same time, there are many scenarios, especially against Gogeta, where you just need that damage, and sometimes you just can't get it. So hopefully he does get that damage. Hopefully he does get that support. But as it stands right now, he's still missing just some minor pieces that aren't necessary, but would help a lot.
Yeah, I pretty much agree, especially on the supports part. Because I think Boo's damage will also go up when we get a support, because he does get 150% attack multiplicative,
yes,
but he doesn't have any support. There's we're hoping for Kid Buu super easy, which is likely, but it is still Dokkan, so we'll see.
Yeah, they could just give us an ultimate Gohan instead, Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully not, right?
But
All right,
yeah.
So that's our top 10s.
I don't think we have, unless anybody else wants to add anything. I'm pretty sure we're done.
Yeah, I mean, I've basically said all I had to say, especially the whole I would rather have Topo below DF, you know, actually, but I was just too scared and chicken shit. But yeah, I mean, all of these units here are good in almost every event. You know, some of them, you know, lack in certain stages. Like for example, Super Trunks is a little bit iffy, to put it lightly, against Cellmax, for example, and you know, Frieza is a little bit iffy in, you know, the Gogeta fight because sometimes you just cannot make it there. But overall, all of these characters are still very good. This is probably one of the strongest top 10s we've had in a very long time.
Yeah, that's a good thing about the 2024 Dokkan is I like to preach this all the time. Because I know a lot of people are like, well, if this unit's not top 10, why are you running this? We have so many good units that literally I like, to put it lightly, tier lists like this don't really matter. You can run what you want to run and still win events. It might be a little bit harder than other teams, but you can still comfortably win. This is not like 2020 or something where we're like, there was like one team just dominating and the rest of the team were just drowning. We actually have a pretty competitive like meta. Dokkan has been doing a great year, like a great job, just giving us substantial units all year. We're not going to talk about AGL Bardock. He doesn't count. But yeah, everybody else is pretty good this year.
And I think we did a good job mentioning most of the units that could be on this list. Maybe some other units like God Goku or the top droids you could talk about, Gohan and Piccolo. But I think a lot of the units that could be on the top 10 list were represented here. So.
Yep. All right. Well, this will be the end of the video. Be on the lookout. We will make another tier list video. It won't be like this. It'll be we'll be rating categories and units for certain fights. So like, we can just talk about like Goku, right? Like, is Goku good in the Gogeta fight? Actually, Goku's a bad example because he's good in like every fight. But
yeah, he's good everywhere.
Like 23Ku or something. Is he good in this fight, the Trunks fight, etc.? We will be having videos like that coming up soon.
Oh, yeah, the Trunks fight. Yo, so just a really quick thing before we leave here. I've been hearing everybody say that that's like a really difficult fight. I don't know, bro. I walked in there with all of these units, and I just like demolished it. Like, even with Rudiger. So, I mean, maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. I mean, that lock, especially for like AGL 3Q, that lock doesn't mean anything. It means, like, sometimes he'll lock him in slot 2 and just, like, literally kill. Like, he'll kill. It's a death wish. Like, he wants to die. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's just a lock. That's why people have it like so high. But yeah, we'll see you in the next video, guys. Peace.